Okay, let's move on to Sonya. Let's hear what we've got from Sonya. Let's tell us a little bit about yourself, because you are new to this, and tell us about your book and why you think it's a great book.
Okay, I'm Sonya. I live near London, and basically I'm sort of, I think, talking about both unlimited power and unleash the power within, because I actually did the Tony Robbins courses, and so I never actually read the books. I was recommended to go on his UPW weekend, and that was total immersion for me. But the principles of what he teaches on his courses, I mean, I carried on then to do some of his other courses, are in those books. And for me, it was a real life changer. And I think what it was for me was, I would go to say, as far as to say, it changed the way I think. For me, what a huge revelation was, I mean, maybe it's not quite so unusual now, I don't know, but this was years ago actually, and it was a complete new concept to me that reality isn't actually reality. It's our reality. We see the world through complete filters. So, and because of that, we can actually change how we see the world and therefore how we feel. And I think that's a real game changer, because I think people sometimes get to a point where they feel really stuck and they think this is all there is, or that they can't get out of whatever it is. But actually, if you recognize what your filters are, and you know your beliefs and your values make up a huge amount of that, you can actually change those beliefs and those values. You're not stuck there with it. And so that was a real eye-opener for me. And of course, he goes on to explain how and why you can do this. And so things like, you know, if you're stuck and you feel you can't do things, being able to look at it and know that we move towards pleasure and away from pain, for instance, is something really interesting, because you can see if you can make whatever it is you want to be doing that you're not, why isn't that pleasure for you? How can you make it more pleasurable to be able to do that? And various ideas like that. One of the other really good things I think that I got from that was about asking good questions, because quite often with our mind chatter, we don't ask good questions. We might go, why aren't I succeeding in this? Why can't I do this? And the thing is, your brain is actually an amazing mechanism that will find you answers. So if you ask questions like that, it will find the answers. So it might say, you know, why can't you do this? Because you're stupid, or you're not able, you know, you're not focused, or you're not committed, and things like that, which really are not actually that helpful. They don't make you feel good. They don't actually help you to get where you want to go. But if you can ask good questions, and they're usually not why questions, more how and what, it's far more useful. Like, how can I make this a success? How could I make this better? Is a really useful question, because if your brain is going to find ways that you can do that, it means that you will be able to get there eventually. So again, that's a huge game changer. And I think, you know, if we're trying to coach other people, knowing about asking good questions that are helpful is really important. And the other thing is, I was talking about moving from pleasure to pain. I mean, some of the ways you can drill down is, you know, what, if I do achieve this, what will that give me? And the ability to go forward. And also you can sort of ask the question the other way: what would happen? What would be the outcome if I don't achieve what I'm trying to achieve? And then that gives you leverage to actually go forward. And one of the things he was quite big on was having sufficient leverage to make us move towards that. So I mean, you have sufficient pain to move towards the pleasure, basically. So that was another thing. The other really good thing big thing I felt from that was he talked about the 6 human needs. And again, that's really an interesting concept, because basically what he says the 6 human needs is having certainty and having variety, having significance and having love and connection, and also growth and contribution. And you can apply that to lots of different things. And usually when those human needs are met, you really enjoy doing what you're doing and you thrive doing it. And if they're not, that's when you don't. And so again, you can look at things and see how they apply. So, I mean, a good example is doing the business is there's the certainty that the company we work with is there for us, is good, do what they say. But then you have the variety of meeting all the different people and helping people. You have significance, I guess, within your team, but you also have the love and connection. And there's definite growth because you're always learning stuff and you're definitely contributing. So for me, that really, you know, when I applied that, I can see why I really love doing it. Things like that. And also when we're talking about feelings, how you can change your feelings. And, you know, children do it all the time. They go from being sad to happy in a blink of an eye or in a heartbeat. And actually we do have that capacity, but we kind of lose it a bit as we're older. But one of the things is that the feelings and thoughts and our physiology are all really connected or interconnected. So what we think can affect the way we feel, of course, and the way we feel affects our physiology, or what we're feeling affects our thoughts, and again that will affect our physiology. And one of the easiest ways to change the way we think and feel is actually by changing our physiology. So again, that was something that was really useful and important. So that's just kind of like, I suppose, probably the tip of the iceberg, but was some amazing things that actually have helped me.
I love that all those 3 books have kind of focused on our mind and the power that we have to shift things for ourselves by being aware and taking control of what is actually happening in our mind. I liked what you said, Sonya, about changing things physiologically. I have a friend who's a marriage and family therapist, and I would quote this to my kids all the time, but she would say the best way to deal with emotion is motion. So get yourself moving and you can shift things. But I think those 3 books kind of work together in that way. Like, let's pay attention to what's going on in our head and let's shift how we're responding and the results we're getting by working on what's happening there.
Okay, so well, I'm next. Anyway, thank you very much, Sonya. It's very interesting. Well, I have a quick question though. Which book do you think would be, if you were going to ask, someone was going to read a Antony Robbins book or Tony Robbins book, which would be the best book for them to read to get them started?
Unlimited Power, I believe, was his first book.
Yeah, that was in 1986, yeah. He
actually thinks he prefers that one to Awaken the Giant Within. Having said that, I saw online, because I was looking through it, that there is actually, you can get a free download of Reawaken the Giant Within.
Okay.
So, you know, you could start with that and to see where you wanted to go, I guess.
Free is always good. Free is always good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the highlights, I suppose, but it would at least give you a taste of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Sonya. It was really interesting. I'm quite an advocate of Antony Robbins. I quite like him. Anyway, it's over to me now, and my book is very different to the rest of you. My book is Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk. And now I love Gary Vaynerchuk. Now, and I have to say, when I first heard him online, I thought, what a prick. I thought, not another American hyping it up about with a massive ego, telling us that you got to do it his way, with this kind of egotistical life coach sort of feel going on there. If you can't do it, teach it. Anyway, I have to say I was massively wrong. Massively wrong on a massive scale, and I don't mind saying so. It was weird. After a few months, I'd been on LinkedIn and places like that, and he kept on popping up in front of me with his videos from the Gary Vee show. And so I started listening to him accidentally, and then I picked up a few rants from him telling me about why people should be on social media, and you know, considering so many people are actually on social media. Anyway, even though I became kind of interested in his stuff, I was still kind of annoyed with this kind of a New Yorker sort of thing he had going on, and it kind of annoyed me a bit, but I stuck with it because little things kept on popping out of his podcast which kind of interested me and intrigued me, because I didn't like the fact that I started to agree with him even though I didn't like him, and that was kind of annoying me. So anyway, I was on a flight to, I think it might have been a flight to Malaga or something like that. Anyway, and I would think I was reading one of the in-flight magazines or the newspaper or something like that, and there was an article about Gary Vaynerchuk, and it was a quote that he had in there, and I'd heard one of his quotes before which I quite liked, which was, when it comes down to it, there's nothing trumps execution. Now I love that because it kind of brings it into the business concept. Without action, there's nothing. You know, if you don't create action, there's nothing. But what I liked more was that he said, you have to understand that our personal DNA is what it's all about. In other words, don't try and do how they do it, like, for example, Steve Jobs or any of these other millionaires. You need to find your own brand and your own true value, your own concept. That's what you need to be looking for. And once you found that, you're on the right direction. Anyway, as you might have noticed, I hadn't even read the book by that time. I hadn't even got around to reading the book. And so eventually, after I kept on seeing him pop up, I thought, God, I'm going to have to read the book, because everyone keeps on telling me his book's fantastic. I must read the book. Anyway, the trouble is I am one of the laziest book readers in the world, and you cannot get me to read a book. Since I've been in university, I have not read a book, because I had to read books there, so I haven't read a book. So I decided I'm going to have to get Audible and download his book called Crushing It. Okay, so what's Crushing It about? Well, it's in kind of three parts, and one part is inspirational, one part is strategy, and the other part is tactics of running a business or running your life. It can be either. And once I'd kind of listened to that book, that ball of anarchy came together with like that eureka moment. It kind of said, now I've got it. Now I've got it. The fact is, the book is so easy to understand. Once you get through about the third chapter, you're starting to go, okay, now I get it. It's talking about the classic stuff of taking action, setting goals, making plans, all that sort of stuff which everybody knows about. But really what it does come down to is that even though, as I said, the change it's kind of changed my life in a weird way, because even though I kind of thought that most of Gary Vaynerchuk's stuff was winding me up straight away, his mindset and his attitude was enlightening and empowering. It made me want to do better in my business online. That's basically what it wanted me to do. And the book basically says, stop complaining and start living your life your way. Do it. Don't keep talking about it, just do it. And in the same way, like the social media aspect of life, it kind of made it clear that the fact of it is we live in a social media world. We can deny it, we can pretend it doesn't exist, but the fact of it is our online presence is just a reflection of our physical world. Like it or not, we can't uninvent the wheel. That's it. And in the future, our children will think it's completely normal. At the moment, we don't think it is, because we're oldies. Or at least me and you are, Roger. So, I don't know. I would never say that about Shari because she's a young woman. But you know, and basically that was how the book changed me, because it changed everything I'd done online. I was basically an online marketer, so I was already believing in the concept anyway. It wasn't a big deal for me to believe in that, but it gave me the understanding that the social media aspect of and our personal profiles online was our power. That was how we were going to be successful, is because it's today we have Doterra, in the future we may not, but our personal brand, the Steve Jackson brand, the Roger Dawes brand, the Sonya brand, and Katrina Potter brand is more important than any other brand. Our brand is more important. And that's basically what he's telling you. He said that your personal brand is who you are, and that's your future. And so I kind of took that concept and I just run with it, and I'm doing okay with it at the moment. Obviously, the problem with the internet is changing by second by second by second, so you can't really say what's going to happen tomorrow. But today it's working, and that's really it. I mean, finally, what did it change in my life? Well, this podcast is one thing. This podcast came directly from Gary Vaynerchuk's Crushing It, saying that the podcast is going to be the new medium. The main reason is because there's that gap in the day. People catch a bus, what do they do? Put the earphones on. And what do they listen to? Radio or podcasts. That is where they're going. And so they're listening to information all the time, and we're sucking in information. And so the second I look, the penny dropped when he said about the podcast. He said, and the amount of people who were being successful online purely through things like podcasts, Instagram, Facebook. And that is where I went with it. And that's it, really. That's the book. It changed my life, really.
I know you talked about it a lot, Stephen. I'd love to know just what was one thing that you shifted as far as your social media presence from reading that book.
It told me persistence was it. You needed to be persistent. You needed to be committed on a daily basis to create the content, and not be scared to create content every day. You needed to be prepared to, for example, the podcast. This is a bigger project than your general online Instagram accounts. But every day you need to set up content to go online, really. I don't even do as much as most people do, to be frank with you. I concentrate on blog marketing and online marketing. But nevertheless, it did change. You can integrate all of these things into other areas of the internet. The Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and all the rest of them are just a kind of a link of all the rest of them. So as long as you're working on one of them consistently, it's going to work.
I was just going to say, I have followed Gary's stuff for quite a while, and I think it's the same piece of like, kind of what you were saying, Stephen, is that, you know, you can listen to him and then you have to kind of apply, and then you go back, you listen, and you apply. And he has great information, and he's definitely the person that I go to when I need like that boost of motivation, because he doesn't sugarcoat anything. Like, you have to be ready for it completely cut and dry, and this is what you need to hear.
From the hip.
Exactly. And then I think there's the balance of you listen to that, and then he finds your trigger, and then you are like Stephen and saying, he really annoys me, and then you have to go listen to Dark Side of the Light Chasers and figure out why it's a trigger.
I have to say, I have got over being annoyed with him. I have got over it, because I'm kind of, he's like that record you played first time and you hated it, but later on it became your favorite song. He's a kind of like that sort of person.
Right. And I think it's sometimes those things that he tells you that you don't want to hear, and sometimes that's nice. It is frustrating. You're like, oh, I know I need to do that, but I don't want to do that. I got to do it every day.
Every day?
Yeah, exactly. But
and yeah, you're right. I mean, I've listened to his book now I listen to it on the way to work and home. So I walk to work, it takes me 25 minutes. And I listen to them on the way there, and I listen to them on the way home. And I've listened to them 3 times now. And every time I hear something more, it's kind of weird. You kind of, because he has like little, like for example, he has people who have used his ideas and put them into practice, and they have a little piece of information about them. So these people tell you about how they created a massive dental business using Instagram and things like this. And it's impressive how they do it, because it's so simple. It's not even complicated. It's so simple. Like the nerdy dentist who was talking about dental care with her toothbrush, but the kids had been watching it, and they said they wanted to go to her because she was so goofy. And this is amazing how goofy has suddenly become cool. When did that happen?
No, I just wanted to say as well, I think that message of find your brand,
yeah,
and stay with, who you are, what your strengths are, is very powerful. I haven't taken any time yet to listen to Gary, so I'm taking this on board and thinking maybe this is something I need to look into. But
listen to him. You would love him, because he's not bad listening either, because it's kind of funny as well. Well, not funny, but humorous, should we say? Yeah. So it's worth a listen. So anyway, on to you, Shari.
Okay. Well, I chose a book that changed my life from a business perspective. And interestingly enough, it's translated into my regular, my whole life as well. All right. So the book I chose is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And I chose it as a business book initially, and have found that the principles have impacted my whole life. And when I work with leaders who are struggling, either feeling overwhelmed, feeling stuck, I love to go back to the principles from this book, because basically it's about simplify. The process of success can actually be quite simple. And he talks about things that are easy to do and also easy not to do. And the difference between being on the success curve and the failure curve is that moment of decision when we choose to do those things that are easy to do and easy not to do. So from a real life example, it's like brushing your teeth, okay? You get to the end of the day, it's easy to say, oh, I'm just tired tonight. I'm just gonna go to bed. Or it's easy enough to just take 2 minutes and brush your teeth. The impact over time of that decision every day can be huge as far as success or failure. You can end up with a healthy mouth when you're older. You can end up paying a lot of money, having a lot of pain, because of those decisions that are easy to do and easy not to do. He calls these little virtues or success habits, little things that you that seem insignificant in the doing of them, but when compounded over time, yield big results. So he talks about that too, the compound effect of just simple, consistent actions. So for people who feel overwhelmed or stuck, just coming back to that, what are the simple, consistent actions that will have impact? Like, you have to choose actions that will make a difference, that I can consistently do. And the result is just that compound effect, that it turns into something bigger. And he says that, in a nutshell, is the slight edge. It's just the slight advantage we have to choose if we want to go up on that success curve or if we don't. He says the truth is what you do matters. What you do today matters. What you do every day matters. Successful people just do the things that seem to make no difference in the act of doing them. And they do them over and over again until the compound effect kicks in. And I love that too, because sometimes we get, especially in our business, we get ramped up, like we want to take massive action, and sometimes that's really powerful. But often we take that massive action and then we stop doing anything at all, and we step back for a while, and that stop and start is not nearly as effective as just consistently every day doing a couple of really big priorities for you. Simple things that you can do. So anyways, it's a great book. I've read it several times. I like you were all saying, you can learn different things, but if you're feeling stuck or frustrated, I think it's a great place to get some direction and learn how to weed out maybe some of the things you're trying to do that aren't going to bring you the results that you want. So I think this has been such a fun conversation today. I'm excited to read a couple of the books that you've talked about. And Jeff Olson has this quote. He talks about 10 minutes a day reading a good book. And he says, if you would agree to read 10 pages of one of these good books every single day over time, you cannot help but accumulate all the knowledge you'd ever need to be as successful as you could ever want to be. Like a penny over time, reading 10 pages a day would compound just like that and create inside you a $10 million bank of knowledge. If you kept this up for a year, you would have read 3,650 pages, the equivalent of 1 or 2 dozen books of life-transforming material. Would your life have changed? Absolutely, no question. So that's just a beautiful example. Can you commit to 10 minutes a day? And over a year, that compound effect would transform your life. So we would love to hear what you all have read that's had an impact on your life. So we'd love it if you would just drop a comment in the below this podcast and keep this conversation going. We'd love to learn from you and see what things have impacted your life. And again, thank you to Roger and Katrina and Sonya for sharing their time with us today and giving us something else to look at and think about. Thank you.